Well, good afternoon, everyone. I see it's 1 o'clock, so we'll get started. My name is Jack Tuttle. I serve as president of Virginians for High-Speed Rail, and we thank you all for participating today. We have nearly 400 folks registered to learn more about Moving America, Amtrak's new Airo trains. And it's the final program of our 22-23 virtual town hall series, which is designed to give you an opportunity to hear from and to engage with today's leading transportation decision makers and thinkers. The Town Hall series is made possible through the support of our sponsors, Siemens, JBG Smith, and WSP. So thank you for all your generous support. As we proceed, please send your questions via the chat box to our executive director, Danny Plogger, who will address them to our speakers later. And also, please know that the program will be posted on YouTube later this week. As for Virginians for High-Speed Rail, we were founded back in the 1990s to educate and advocate for fast, safe, frequent, and reliable passenger rail. And over nearly 3 decades of work, Virginia truly has become a leading investor in rail. The Commonwealth is expanding service and setting new ridership records. Virginia's Amtrak ridership is on pace to exceed 2 million passengers this year for the first time ever. It took 37 years for our Amtrak trains to break the 1 million mark, and it looks like 15 years to exceed 2 million annual trips. Between the completion of the first 2 phases of the Transforming Rail in Virginia program and the new Airo train sets we're going to learn more about today, 2030 sounds like a good year to aim for 3 million annual trips in Virginia. So now I have the pleasure of introducing our speakers. George Hall serves as Amtrak Vice President and Chief Mechanical Officer. He's a 1988 graduate of the United States Merchant Marine Academy. He began his career working in naval propulsion systems right here in Virginia. In 2006, he transitioned to the world of rail as a consulting engineer, establishing reliability-centered maintenance practices for the current Acela fleet. And then hired directly by Amtrak in 2014, George became Amtrak's Chief Mechanical Officer in 2021. George is one of a few key leaders engaged early in Amtrak's Airo procurement process, setting specifications and technical support plans. George resides in Chesapeake, Virginia, and can be found riding Amtrak between DC and Norfolk on a regular basis. Steve Morrison serves as Amtrak Key Account Manager for Siemens Mobility, Inc. And since joining Siemens in 2011, he's worked with Amtrak on Siemens projects nationwide. As founder and past president of the Coalition for the Northeast Corridor, Steve works with Siemens Government Affairs Group on national rail policy. He also serves on our board of directors at Virginians for High-Speed Rail. He's a native of New Hampshire and a graduate of the University of New Hampshire. So with that, I'll turn it over now to George and to Steve. Gentlemen.
Okay. I will give me a minute here to share the screen. All right. Okay. I guess good afternoon. First thing, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Second thing is, can you see the slides?
Yes.
All right. We're in good shape. That's a good start. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. I'm excited to be here today to talk about our new trains and train travel in Virginia. Many of you know we already have a strong partnership with the state of Virginia, and I'll thought I was going to go through these slides. Here we go. So as I said, we have a strong partnership. There's it's been established a good baseline and foundation with investment. We have been making some good progress, I think, in enabling service enhancements through last year. We're seeing record ridership, and everything has been very encouraging as we come out of the major service disruption from the pandemic. We're certainly excited for the future with the Transforming Rail in Virginia initiative and the funding to go into that, and the exciting opportunity to expand the service into Virginia, extend it to new places, and create a much more connected rail experience through North Carolina, Virginia, and up to the corridor. As I mentioned, key thing there is looking to double the support with the increases into Norfolk. One that is exciting for me as well, living down here in Chesapeake, but a lot of exciting things here as we increase and expand the opportunities into Virginia, and I think it's going to be a really exciting process as we move through this expansion. Next thing I'll talk about here is our Amtrak and Siemens partnership. So we also have a very strong partnership with Siemens. It started with the ACS 64 locomotives. We done a lot of work and worked very closely with Siemens. One of the kind of groundbreaking aspects for us there was a 15-year long-term service agreement that we put in place with that equipment, which included performance incentives that we've been able to manage. We're 8 years into this contract. We're very pleased with how it works and what it's done for not only our folks, but the equipment, and it's made a world of difference in maintaining those locomotives. So we've had a lot of good lessons learned from that. And so as we've moved through other procurements, we've continued to work in partnership with Siemens to strengthen that relationship. The long distance locomotives, which are next off the production line here, we've got 22, might actually be a little more than that. I think we've got a slug of them coming over from Sacramento as we speak. The first batch will be 75 units to be delivered by the end of 2025, and then we also exercise an option for 50 more units for 2029. So with that, we've expanded and have a long-term service agreement as well for 20 years. With that, we've managed to get some very aggressive performance requirements in the long-term service agreement. So we're looking forward to those. We've got them in service now on the Empire Builder and continuing to expand those out. Then of course, what we're here for is the Airo train sets. So we're looking forward to 73 units. We've got an option for 10 that we had deferred until we kind of knew what the pandemic recovery was going to look like, and then we have the ability for 130 options on that, with again with a 23-year long-term service agreement that includes overhauls and midlifes, and will be something that's going to be critical for us to maintain that fleet through its life cycle. And I'll talk a little bit more about TSSAs as we get into that. So certainly some of the things that we get with that agreement, we've been working to embed Siemens experts in our operations. So we actually have Siemens personnel on some of our operations desks that have the ability to look at downloads and events from the locomotives over the road. And then it most importantly is a material support effort that helps us leverage the supply base that Siemens develops in order to build the units in the first place. All right, I'll let Steve talk a little bit about Siemens.
Thanks, George. Good afternoon, everybody. Siemens is understandably and obviously very proud to have our relationship with Amtrak, and we've been excited to work on the locomotive projects, and we're especially excited to be delivering the Airo train sets to um, passenger rail riders throughout the United States, and very much so those of us in Virginia who will have a chance to ride them. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Siemens because this is not about us, it's about the trains. But just very briefly, for those of you who aren't familiar with the company, it's a 175-year-old company based in Germany, has been operating throughout the world for more than a century. Think of General Electric in terms of all the different sectors, and that's a good idea of Siemens. Siemens Mobility, the stats that you're seeing partially here, is part of that company. And here in the United States, we have a very large presence. We've been manufacturing trains now since the late 1980s. Next slide, please. Go ahead to the next one. This, well, let me actually, so this is our final assembly area in Sacramento. These are various light rail trains that are almost ready to go out for dynamic testing. Light rail is how we started in North America, both in the United States and Canada. There are certain cities where I think we're pretty iconic. If you've ever been to San Diego and you've seen those red trolleys, those are made in Sacramento. Next slide. Again, large presence, large footprint. We've invested heavily in growing and deepening our North American and US presence, investing in facilities, investing in jobs, expanding to the largest domestic supply chain rail manufacturing OEMs. And we're all about, you know, trying to bring as much value to the United States and Canada as we can. Next slide. This is a photo of part of our manufacturing facility in Sacramento, California. As the slide says, being in California and having the opportunity to leverage solar, it makes up the vast proportion of the energy use that or generation that we use for manufacturing our locomotives, our coaches, and our light rail trains. Next slide. And now, George, I'll hand it back to you so we can show folks what they're going to get to ride on very soon.
Okay, so we got a video here, and hopefully it will work. And here we go. All right, pretty exciting. It's fun to watch that every time I do get I get chills every time I see it. So as mentioned, we're real excited about it. We see this, I see this as a kind of a new era for us in rail. And anybody that's ridden the Amfleet cars realize just how tired they are, and so it's going to be real exciting to have modern trains to ride on there. So as you can see, some of the interior features there, there's a pretty good rendering of some of the things we're trying to do with regard to tables, handholds on the seats, really bringing in the current technology and of things that we have for amenities. Picture here, again, you can see more of the inside, but looking forward to the space and the tables with respect to what we're doing there. And I'll get into some of the details on the operating the train and other stuff that as the mechanical guy, I'm really excited about. All right, so first thing, train sets. We've gotten a lot of questions about why train sets. We have, Amfleets and the corridor have been traditionally a locomotive pulled individual car type consist model. I will say we've been running Acela for 20 years now, and we have found that it is a much more efficient and effective way to operate and maintain the equipment. So likewise, most of the European operators are using train sets for that, and we are excited. I'm excited to move in that direction. It provides a lot of opportunities for us to really streamline maintenance, do maintenance in a much different way than we've been able to do before, and it significantly cuts down on yard operations and switching and a lot of non-value added time for the consists. Certainly some of the things that we're looking forward to in here is eliminating the engine changes. We'll talk about redundancy on propulsion, as well as the advantage of the semi-permanent inter-car connections give the customer experience a much better experience to be able to go car to car with what we can do with the vestibules when we have those connections. Not to mention the train lines, we can get much more complicated digital train line connections between cars. They maintain their reliability so that we're not having to continually disconnect and reconnect things. And we're looking forward to all those advancements there with the train sets. All right, so this is just a kind of an outline of where we're at. We have the jumped. Let me go back. There we go. We've got the first delivery, which we've called the D trains. We had different configurations when we went through the process, and these have actually just kind of stuck. So we've got our D configuration, which is an all diesel, and we'll have 8 of those train sets delivered for service in 2026. We'll start out in the Cascade service in Washington and Oregon. Then towards the end of 2026, we're expecting to bring the B2, which is the longer train, into the Northeast Regional and begin operations on the corridor with that train set following through deliveries through 2029. The other B1, which is the shorter, a little less capacity, will be used for the Keystone, Vermont, some of our state services, as well as on the regionals, based on how we want to manage capacity. And both of those will be dual modes, which will be catenary and diesel. I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. And then our fourth train, C train, which is will be a battery diesel operated train that will run on the Empire service. The battery will be used in place of third rail, where we have that to get in and out of New York Penn. So really exciting stuff. Here's the fun thing, and this is where I get real excited about this. So the configurations and the things that we're doing here with this train set are kind of groundbreaking, at least certainly for here in the U.S. What we've done for the corridor is to utilize a diesel locomotive that will have an intercar connection for power. So ideally, what we'll do in the corridor is capture the power from the catenary, and it will supply power to the traction motors on the diesel locomotive, and use those traction motors as well as traction motors on the APV power car to help us achieve our 125-mile-an-hour speeds and trip times and performance that we need on the corridor. So the concept of using a power car behind and designing the locomotive to be able to take that power feed, is something that we're really excited about, because we believe that really kind of opens us up for things in the future with regard to how we can look at new technologies and utilize them. So, like I mentioned, the battery car will be also a car behind the locomotive, same type of locomotive that will take a DC link power from the battery car to use the traction motors on the locomotive when we're not using the diesel engine, and we'll use that to traverse third rail areas. And when we come out from that, we will fire up the diesel and use that. The battery car certainly gives us the opportunity that we plan to use to do a lot of testing to determine what we can gain as far as efficiencies with fuel economy, either out of augmenting acceleration and power, certainly capturing energy when you're slowing down. And we'll be able to look at how we can expand the utilization of that car into all our services where we have diesel, and eventually help take us into the future for net zero emissions requirements. It's not on the picture here, but the concept of having that auxiliary vehicle gives us the opportunity to come up with, say, a hydrogen vehicle that we could put behind the diesel, any number of different power options that we could experiment with and test. So real excited about what this is going to be able to enable us to do for developing even further into the future how to power our trains. All right. Another thing I'm excited about here is we've really, running a train set gives us the ability to create a consist-wide experience. So we can establish an accessibility corridor, if you will, in the center of the car. So the cafe car will have end-to-end access for wheelchair bound passengers, and we have the ability to transit through the vestibule. So that'll give us access for up to 5 wheelchair locations with 2 ADA restrooms across those cars. 3 ADA restrooms across those cars, which is a really a big improvement for our mobility challenged passengers, and so we're excited about that. Likewise, we'll have wheelchair lifts that are on board the cars to be able to help that, and certainly by being able to configure the cars with ADA accessible vestibules and wheelchair lifts, we can minimize the amount of that equipment overall on the train set, and still give access to 2 cars with 1 wheelchair lift. So for the guy that has to maintain those things, that was kind of important to me. And so what's here you can see is the B1 and the B2. Like I said, B2s are really just a little bit longer consists. All right, so a lot of questions about train sets and what we do for maintenance, and the easy answer is, or I should say, the short answer is, we're not going to be able to do it the way we've always done it. So part of determining how we were going to do this, how the train sets were going to be configured, also meant looking at our facilities and our maintenance patterns. So along with ICT, it will be a significant upgrade of maintenance facilities and a transformational change of how we have done maintenance on our conventional equipment. The easiest way to think of it is it's really an expansion of our Acela process. Although we're changing some aspects of that, and certainly the nomenclature, just to help move it and create a new lexicon to help folks think about it differently. But we'll go to a plan where we do service and cleaning on a daily basis. Any maintenance or inspections that we can do within those timeframes, we will do that. We'll go to a maintenance and inspection 8-hour touch time every 10 to 14 days on the equipment, and then of course have heavy maintenance. And really the reason for this not only was, to be able to increase the availability of the equipment, similar to what we've done on Acela. We maintain Acela in a similar fashion where we do a little bit of the maintenance every day. We call that fragmenting the maintenance. Our Amtrak word for that is continuous maintenance. And that has been a tremendous success for us in being able to manage that fleet with a very limited amount of track space and facilities. So one of the other things as we go into the future too will be the utilization and cross utilization of our facilities. So a Airo train set will be in the same building as a legacy train set, and potentially even the new train set. So we will begin to cross utilize our new maintenance facilities for all the equipment. And the reason we had to do that was we're, as you know, constrained on our real estate. So we can't necessarily go build a whole bunch of buildings in the areas that we have now around Sunnyside and DC. There's a lot of limitations. So this maintenance pattern enables us to make the best use of the valuable pit track or maintenance track, and allows us to do the fragmented maintenance so that we can significantly reduce the infrastructure investment that would be required in order to maintain trains on a what we've kind of been used to on a conventional basis. That being said, we've developed kind of a level 1, level 2 site facility. So a lot of the level 2 facilities are our endpoints. The reality of what we're doing is every time that the train has where it's not pulling passengers is an opportunity for us to work on it. So we will have to maximize all those opportunities. So that's a big part of the facilities upgrades that are going to be needed in order to achieve the maintenance operation and the overall operation of the system. And map here kind of shows where we're at with respect to those facilities. Right now, we'll have the large facilities in Sunnyside, Ivy City, Boston, Philadelphia, which we will be building a new facility there, and then Albany and Seattle. And the idea with the Philadelphia facility, and the reason we're going there, starting there first, that will help relieve some pressure as we have to do construction and modifications in the other facilities to get ready. The trick is, how do you continue to run your service and take tracks out of service and build things where you're running every day. So it's going to be quite a dance that we have to orchestrate as we move forward. So looking forward to that. All right, I got through that a little quicker than I thought, and I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, George, and Steve as well. The first question, which is actually, I guess I'll put two questions together. Are there any plans to add baggage facilities onto these train sets? I know some of the trains, especially coming from Norfolk or Newport News. By the time you get to Boston, it's quite a trip, especially kind of having your baggage with you at all times. And then additionally, where there will there be the ability to have bike racks in the cars or bikes per car, as we kind of get into the ability to bring our bikes with us as we commute or travel from destination to destination?
Yeah, so good questions. Thank you. The first one on baggage is the one of the overall concepts with the train set is it's a modular design. So we recognized early on that throughout the life of the train, amenities were going to change. People were going to want different things. So we have the ability to, and we do have a baggage module designed. I believe some of the B1 trains on the North Carolina trains will have a section in the coach car that where instead of seats we'll have a baggage compartment. So that is there and a potential. Right now, for the trains in Virginia, I do not believe that we have a baggage module for that, but it is something that is able to be done with the design. For bike racks, yeah, every car will have the ability to have bikes. The bike racks will be integrated into the luggage racks. So there is that space can be used for either bikes or luggage.
Excellent. Another question that we got is, what is the anticipated battery range for the, what is it, the B1s, the battery diesels?
Yeah, so good question, and that all depends. There's a lot that goes into that on the batteries, and having ridden one of the all battery powered trains over in Europe that Siemens built, it's amazing how much software plays into that. So the duty cycle, the elevations, speeds, everything that goes into that, is a factor that has to be considered for just how far. So it's very route specific. With respect, our intention with this battery capacity is enough to get in and out of New York City with the estimated, with perceived delays or things that can go wrong, as trains are coming and going. So if you get held up, we've got enough reserve battery power, and things like that are designed. So short term is in and out of New York City. I don't have the exact mileage for that. And the idea is that you can use that battery car in much, in different applications, and certainly with the ability to recharge it dynamically from braking or other aspects along the way gives you, the ability to use it for fuel efficiency and other things. But that's a long way of saying, I don't know, and it depends, but it is very route specific. And a lot of software goes into designing how to optimize the power usage so that you can get the maximum distance out of that power.
And assuming as y'all collect data, you talked about different configurations. One of them that I did not see that I think would be interesting in the future is the catenary and a battery type dual mode. And obviously you would need to have short enough corridors between electrified territory to operate that type of train set. And also knowing all the different conditions that draw down on a battery powered locomotive, heat, cold, etc., topography. Is that something that y'all have given thought to as kind of a future iteration when more data is available?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you're right. Surprisingly, the hotel load for head end power is probably the most challenging with respect to what you have to manage. It is amazing how much power has to be dedicated to that. But yeah, so that's the exciting thing about the batteries. It opens up all kinds of options, even with the overhead catenary. So for example, you could do catenary islands, if you will, recharge. You don't necessarily have to build catenary over the entire route. You can put it either at stops or layovers, as well as, like I said, create islands, along the route. Gives you a lot of opportunities. And the idea of looking at batteries and pantographs and, what we can do there is absolutely on our mind.
Excellent. A question from Nicholas Little. Will there be an APV/battery car at both ends of the train set, or just one?
Right now, just one.
Okay. I'm going through some of the chat questions now. How does hauling around an unneeded diesel affect acceleration, deceleration under the catenary powers?
Well, so I'll counter that it's not an unneeded diesel. So one of the aspects of dual power that we're looking for is the redundancy with regard to when we have catenary issues or weather issues. So yeah, you could look at it as you're pulling extra weight around, and there's certainly aspects of that. But on the corridor with the overhead catenary, it's a pretty efficient power source. And the ability now that when we have down catenary wires, to be able to use a diesel to move a train to a safer location or continue on a route is something that I'm really excited about. I think it'll go a long way to reliability and performance, and at the end of the day, getting customers from A to B. Despite some of the challenges we have today with regard to power.
Okay. Another interesting question is, since these train sets don't need to be turned on a Y, are the seats set directionally? Are they fixed, or are you have the ability to turn that backwards trip into a frontwards, depending on how things are?
Yeah, so the design is going to be to fix the seats. So there'll be half of them facing in each direction, and we will no longer turn seats.
Okay. Will the approach be applied in the transitioning of these train sets to long distance trains anytime in the near future?
So we don't have. I would go back to the comment of the testing that we'll want to do with what the battery car or auxiliary power cars can do. So it's not out of the question.
Okay. Sorry, I'm going through a handful of these. There was a lot of great questions, and a lot of the ones you've answered during your comments. Will all Amfleet's cars serving Virginia be replaced by Airo train sets with the initial 73 train set deliveries? And I know I saw on your chart that was it 66, 67, which is going to be delayed a little bit, probably till closer to 2029. But it seems like we're kind of at the front of the line as part of the Northeast corridor. Is that more or less correct?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Yeah, the intention is to replace all the Amfleets. With respect to that, then certainly there will be a process as we move through that. But that is the intention.
Okay. And Rafi asked, what is the top speed capabilities?
It'll be 125 miles an hour.
Yeah. With a group called Virginians for High Speed Rail, we can't not ask the top speed question during our questions. Cliff asked, what is the maximum train set length that can be accommodated with these new train sets? I know you had shorter ones and the B1s and the slightly longer with B2s. Is there a maximum length? Say as Virginia service, if we start pushing that 300 or 3 million rider, that we could add an additional passenger car or two down the line?
So I would have to get back to you on the exact what we can add. There is capacity there. Certainly, you could look at other options of putting a power on both ends instead of a cab car on one end. The trip times are kind of what drives what we need. So certainly off the corridor, longer trains at 90 miles an hour are much different than 125 miles an hour. So in order to maintain the trip times at higher speeds, obviously less capability to add there.
Okay. And then is there any estimate on the CO2 emissions of these Airo train sets compared to the equivalent of Amfleet? I know I saw the 90% less particulate pollution, and just wondering how that translates overall into a side-by-side comparison of our current regionals.
So the locomotives, the diesel will be a T4 diesel, which is a significant reduction to our current locomotives, which are really tier 0 or less in some aspects. So it'll be a significant improvement by going to tier 4 diesel. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head.
Okay. And generally speaking, kind of what is the capacity of these train sets? Standard passenger car. I think the current Amfleets are in the 70, if I remember correctly, seats, give or take.
Yeah, so the cars right now are 72 seats, I want to say. So the B2 configuration is about 479 passengers, including business. The B1 configuration with baggage is in the neighborhood of 317, and without is around 335 between economy and business class.
Okay. Yeah, so right on pace. And I guess another important question and complaints that we kind of hear from is, will these train sets have better internet connectivity than the current ones where you as you know, traveling in Virginia, you get north of Ashland and you go into a dead zone for a little bit.
Yeah.
Will these trains be built kind of with those better specifications for connectivity, wireless or technology connectivity?
Yeah, so being somewhat familiar with putting Wi-Fi on trains, the issue is not so much inside the train, and with these as a semi-permanent coupled train set gives us the ability to run digital lines throughout the train set. So the network on board the train set will be very high speed. The issue with Wi-Fi on trains is always the ground to train connection. So we still rely on the same cellular towers, and the technology is there that uses 2 or 3 service providers in order to aggregate data off the train to the towers and then to the internet. And that generally has been is the real limiting factor for performance of a Wi-Fi network on something that's moving. You can, aircraft, you've got a nice satellite you can put on that, but satellite on trains so far is problematic. Certainly when you're in the city or in tree coverage, makes that a bit of a challenge. So what I expect, or I would say, is as the Wi-Fi connectivity in Virginia improves, and one of the things to do would be for this group to encourage the cellular providers to put towers alongside the rail instead of alongside the highway, or both, and that will greatly improve the performance. But you're right, there are several really dead spots between Norfolk and DC, and it has everything to do with the tower coverage to do that. But all these technologies are continuing to improve by leaps and bounds, and so I would expect some increase in performance. Of course, that also goes with increases in expectation for bandwidth. So that is something that always has to be balanced.
Okay, thank you. And you've answered most of the questions that I've seen. And so the final one, I guess I'll ask is, will the current Amfleet cars be reassigned to other trains to increase capacity, or will they be, sold off or held into reserve for special circumstances?
So probably a combination of both. They're at their useful life, and we have many challenges with those cars. So the idea of keeping them around is not something that I relish. That being said, it is a reality that there will be cars that we'll keep in reserve, either for special circumstances or special trains. But the intention is to scrap, a large part of that fleet. And as we go through that process, certainly the least reliable cars will go first, and the cars that we believe have a little more longevity to them, we will maximize them. But the intention really is not to keep them any longer than I have to.
Okay. Thank you, George, and thank you, Steve, as well, and everybody for attending and participating today in our fifth program of the 2022-2023 series. I think we've averaged over 700 folks who have participated in each event. And so I want to thank you all again and look forward to our next one launching later this summer and spring. And once again, thank you to our sponsors, JBG Smith, WSP, and Siemens, and then also to George and Steve for presenting and discussing. And we'll get the slides for those who have asked, and the video as well, and share that with everybody. Thank you all, and have a great afternoon, and look forward to doing this again and getting an update in the near future. Thank you all again.
You bet.